Okay, so today we're gonna go over dates and the JavaScript date object. And dates are very good to know how to work with in order to, for example, printing out or keeping track of which day a user has joined a website or which date a purchase was made, or it can be used for many different reasons. Um, for example, to see when a subscription goes out or anything. And for all these different things, we use something called the date object in JavaScript. And without further ado, I just think it's best that we just start checking it out by typing some code. So you define a new date object by simply first declaring a variable, and I will basically create a new variable that I will call date. And then to set this variable to a date object, you simply type new and then date with a capital D. And this way I've created myself a new date object which I have assigned to this date constant here. So if I console.log this date constant out, we can see what this date object will look like. So when we log this out, we see that we get Wednesday of March 3rd, Wednesday the 3rd of March 2021, and then the time, and then which time zone we're in here. And what this is say a Central European Normal Time, since we're in Sweden right now. And basically this way you can get the date and assign it to a variable and then do whatever you want with it. But the date method has much more things than just displaying the current date out like this, and it has, for example, a couple of methods that can be interesting to use. We can, for example, get just the year, which can be interesting to get, and that way we just take our date object here, which we have assigned to this date variable here. That's why I can use this date variable here, and then I can just attach whichever method that I want to it. So if, for example, I say const year, and then I take this date object, then I hook on the get full year method onto it, I can then see which year it is. So if I console.log this year variable out, console.log year, when we refresh this, we can see that we get 2021 here, 2021. You can do the same for the month. So you can take const month and set that equal to date dot get month. And when you console.log this out, you get the month back as a number between 0 and 11, since there are 12 months per year. And then we see that we're in March now, so then we get the 2 here, since January is 0, February is 1, and March is 2. We can also, for example, get which day it is. So const day equals date dot get day, And then we can say console.log day. And when we refresh this, we can see that it's the third day. And since it's Wednesday today, this means that it's the third day of the week. So it's a number here between 1 and 7, which we get. And if we continue on with more stuff, we can, for example, also use the date.now method. So const now is equal to, and then to call this method, because this is a new ES6 method, you actually have to specify date like this, and then push it to call the now method like this, and then we can console.log out now. Console.log out now. And then when we save this, we get this long number here. And these are basically a number in milliseconds, or the time in milliseconds since the 1st of January 1970. So this is how many milliseconds that has passed since that date. These are all so-called date getters, like get full year, get month, get date, and then date.now. You get the number of milliseconds since January 1970. What we also can do is that we can set the date, so we can change the date basically. So what we can do is that we can say const the year, and what we do then is we take our date object, and then what we set it to is that we say set full year instead of get full year, and then we specify the year we want to set it to, so 1990 for example. And then if I would console.log out here, date.getFullYear with the getFullYear method, we should see that it now has changed from 2021 to 1990, which we can see here. When we just called it up here directly before we had set it, then it was 2021. When we're calling it here now in our console.log getFullYear, after we have changed it through the set full year method, we can see that it's now 1990 instead. And you can do the same thing for the month. So const month equals date.set month, and here you set it to a month from 0 to 11. So for example, we can set it to 5. And if we then console.log date.get month, we will see that it has now changed from second to 5, which we can see as when we just called get month up here in console logout. Then we see that we get 2 since it's March, and when we do it down here we get 5 since we have set it before her by ourselves. And this approach you can do with various multiple parameters, and there are methods for basically anything you can think of regarding this to manipulate the dates. And maybe what's even more interesting is date formats to how you actually write out it, because often you don't want to write out a date like this 2021 2 3. Maybe you want to rather write it out like this 2021 03 03, which is the standardized format we use all over or in large parts of the world at least. So how do we do that? Well, this format is what's called an ISO format. And how we create this type of format is that we need to convert our date object into something called an ISO string. And how we do that is that we can create a new variable here called ISO date. And then we take our date object, and then we add the method to ISO string onto it. And if we save this and console.log out this new variable, ISO date, then we will see that we get out our date object, but converted into something that will look like this. And what we see here is that we get, since our date object is now set to 1990, we get 1990 and the 3rd of June. But if we, for example, take our and comment out these, so we get the current year instead, and refresh this, and 2021, and we see that we're in the 3rd of March. We see that we get this time here, that it's 1527, and then the seconds here, and then the milliseconds. And usually this is not how you want to write out a date. Mostly you want it to look like this here, 2021 03 03, and not the time coming out there afterwards. So what you can do here is that we can, on this string here, since we have created it, we can attach the split method, which basically splits the string up into multiple arrays instead, into 2 arrays in this case. And we say that we want to split this string up when it reaches the t. So this t character here, we want to split it up into 2 strings. And then we say that we just want to return here the first of the array. So when I save this, we can see that we will only get 2021 03 03 back. And the reason that we get this is because when we split this string here, that looked like let's see, like this before. We split it here on the t, and then convert this string into an array with 2 strings in it. So if we console.log out isodate after just pulling dot let's see, dot split here without returning just the first item of the array, we can see that what we get returned here is an array with 2 values, with 2 strings in it, basically, since that we have split up. So we get 2021 03 03, and then the time here, and the t is removed. And when I attach this, is that I basically call out which item of the array I want returned, and I want the first item, which is the one with index 0. So that's how we can create a more correct representative ISO date. What can be interesting as well is to see how we can, for example, get the same date here, but for example, an entire year in the future. So what I will do then is that I will create a new constant called a year from now. If I would want to get the exact date for whichever day I'm at, but a year from now, then I will create a new date here. There's a new date object. And then this new date object will take a new date object in it. And on this I will call the set full year method. And then this set full year method will in itself take a new date object, which we'll call the get full year method. So I set the year here to the full year that we have now, and then just basically add 1 onto it. And then if I save this and I console.log out, console.log, and then I console.log out a year from now, then we can see here that we get Thursday, the 3rd of March 2022. So exactly a year from now, instead of just getting the current date. And then I could simply just, if I wanted to turn this one into an ISO string as well, to get it in the more standardized format. So then I would just simply create a new constant maybe called next year ISO. And then that would simply be a year from now dot to ISO string. And I want to split it. I want to split my string that I've created on the T character. Oops. On the T. And then I want to return the first of those items in this new array that I've created. So if I console.log out this new variable called next year ISO, I should get today's date a year from now in a standardized format. So that's how we get that there, 2022-03-03. And there's lots of things you can do with dates. You can get the current time and create timestamps like this for when the users sign up and become members of a service, or you can do a lot of things with a date object. But I'm going to end it here now that I've shown a little bit of what you can do with it and more practical examples for how you can work with it to print out more readable standardized dates and so on, and then let you continue explore the date object through the various documentation that exists.